I'm obliged to remind you that should you decide to work on a TV set like this, or even on a vintage radio of some sort, which is powered via AC, okay, you should remember that voltages in this kind of equipment can and will kill you if you are not careful. Okay, I still need to button up a few details which I had happily ignored until now, but which absolutely need to be tackled. One of those things is that I need to insulate this little coil here. As you can see, it was originally covered with I would say a type of ceramic, and the ceramic just simply fell off the top of the coil. Now there goes quite a bit of voltage through that little coil, so I think it's imperative that I insulate the coil, and I'm going to use what's known in the electronics world as RTV silicone. Okay, so it's a neutral, a chemically neutral type of silicone which is used to insulate high voltage stuff. Okay, so I'm going to use a bit of that to re-insulate this little coil here. Next, I'm going to repair the new tube's socket, which is loose, and I'll use a little bit of this, which is windshield and glass sealer glue. Yeah, it's high temperature resistant, but it still has just enough give to it that when the glass heats up, it won't crack because of the resistance of the glue. I'm sure you'll have seen Bob Anderson on his channel use the same type of stuff. So, and according to him, and I believe him, it's the best kind of stuff to use on that type of fault. Okay, so a loose connector at the base of a CRT. Oh yeah, I think I did not mention, but yes indeed, I found a new CRT. Well, when I say new, I mean a replacement CRT. It was a used one, definitely, as the loose connector at the back testifies, and also the iron burn on the front of the screen. Because this, in contrast to the original CRT, which is this one, so this is an 8DP4, an RCA original 8DP4 CRT with a bent gun. Okay, it has a bent gun. The 8KP4, which is what I installed now in the TV set, has a straight gun. And unfortunately, the problem with a straight electron gun is that you get the infamous iron burn mark on the front of the screen. I can't show you right now, but once I'm done with insulating and gluing the stuff I need to repair, excuse me, I'll do just that. I'll give you a small demonstration of the new CRT, obviously, and I'm also going to show you that infamous iron burn. Yeah, so that is in fact why CRTs with a bent gun, like the 8DP4, use an ion trap magnet, okay? Because if you don't, then the electrons coming from the electron gun are shot to the side of the tube, yeah, or I should say to the side of the neck of the tube, which means that you wouldn't be able to get an image on the front of the screen, and therefore you need a magnet to bend the path of the electrons back straight and to the front of the CRT. Okay, well, yep, I've got a good tube, and I did already some alignment on the picture, okay, so that I could show you what what the picture would look like on the TV. So yeah, it's a lot better, of course, than what it was before with the old tube. Now, unfortunately, like I said before, the problem with this tube is that it has a straight gun, and you can see the spot right here. Okay, so this is the iron burn spot, because this CRT has a straight gun, and unfortunately, unlike the 8DP4, which has a bent gun, this spot you see here will grow worse over time as I use this CRT, but it's the best I can do for the moment. Okay, so well, it will at least allow me to repair the TV. Now, there are a few things that still need addressing. You can see there's a kind of a blurriness to the picture. Well, not a blurriness, but you can see the picture sort of pulses, yeah, between lighter and darker, and it moves from the top down. So I suspect there is a bit of a problem in the vertical deflection, which I need to fix also. And that is a much weirder effect. You can see there are clear bands in the image, okay? So, and in fact on camera it's even clearer than when you look at it real life, okay? So you have a band here, here, and here, and then there's one that runs here but slightly crooked, okay? So it runs like this. I exaggerate a bit, but that's what it is. So the bands, you see, those lighter and darker patches run over roughly 2/3 of the screen. Now, I really have no clue for the moment what the source could be of those bands, but I really need to address that to get a clear image. Also, you see, when you look at the pattern I'm projecting onto the screen, you see that it's bumped exactly where those bands are, in fact. So where you see the darker bands, there's a dimple in the image. Where there's a light band, there's a bump. Okay, so it's definitely something I need to address if we are to have a good image. All right. We're approaching the point where instead of restoring or refurbishing the TV set, rather we should try to make it work as well as we can. Now, there are still a couple of things about the TV set that I'm not happy about, and except for that deformation of the picture, that annoys me. But I have an idea on as to what the reason would be for that. There's also the typical fault where the picture is really sharp and nice, but when the picture is really sharp, the sound is very weak, and vice versa. When the sound is good, the picture is very bad. And in fact, if you look at the service manual of the RCA, which is, and it's more specifically at the following page, you see here that they have a section on sound and picture tracking. You see it right here. Okay, so on the tuner of the TV set, there is a coil mounted at an angle. You see it here on the schematic. Okay, and the coil is called L49 sound boost. Okay, and it seems to be aligned at a very specific frequency, which would be 41.25 megacycles or megahertz. And in fact, the coil they are talking about right here is that little coil you see over there. Okay, so this coil right here is that coil you see on the schematic, and what they advise to do is to basically you have to tune the TV to get a maximally sharp picture, and then by tuning this coil you have to make the sound as loud as possible. So in effect you have to peak the sound so that it is loud and clear, and the picture on the screen is really sharp and steady. So instead of going through a very complicated alignment procedure to try to improve the picture and sound quality, I think it would be advisable to first try to fix it with this coil here. Now, there is also something which they call the FM trap. You see it here, okay? Now, the FM trap is at the back of the tuner, so somewhere around here somewhere. Yeah, and unfortunately I can't get to it because right now the tuner, as you can see, is lying on the bench on precisely that side. Now, the FM trap really is, I think, in my case, rather irrelevant. Why? Well, this is actually a sort of a coil you can peak, yeah, pretty much like this here, and just in case you would be living right next to a radio station, yeah, and when I say right next, let's say within a couple of miles or so from a radio station, and an FM radio station, because that obviously would influence the TV via secondary emissions and parasitic emissions and whatever. And with this FM trap, you are supposed to be able to diminish that influence, okay? But in my case, that's really academic, since I'm not living close to an FM station. So what I propose that we do in a minute is to adjust the sound boost coil, which you see on the schematic. Another detail which is really annoying, and I hadn't really noticed until now, is if you look at an exploded view of the tuner, you'll notice that the two tubes on top are covered with a metal cylinder, let's say, yeah, a tube cover. But if you look at the tuner right now, well, you can tell right away that there are no covers on the tubes. Now, I had a very quick look at my bags of loose parts of the TV set, and I couldn't find the tube covers, if there were any at all. So that is really annoying as well, because they don't just put those covers over tubes for aesthetical reasons or whatever. They are really necessary so as to avoid any sort of interference, high frequency interference, with the tuner tubes you see here. Yeah, so that's another thing I will somehow need to fix. Okay, and then there's still yet another relatively simple setting that needs to be tackled, and that is the horizontal oscillator. Now, you remember that I repaired the vertical oscillator circuitry with a new transformer. You see it there, the green transformer. Now, when I did that, I made the picture work, but in a rather approximate way. Okay, so let's say in an intuitive way, but there is a very precise way of making at least the horizontal oscillator work very accurately, so that you get the best possible picture. And that's what I'm going to show you right now, how to do just that. Now, remember what the service manual says should be the right horizontal oscillator waveform. Yeah, should be this one right here, where you see a squiggly line. Okay, you could say an S lying on its back, and the rounding and the tip of the squiggle should be at the same height, so neither one end too low or the other end too low. It should be really like this. And if you look at the screen of the oscilloscope right now, well, you can tell it's only around about that way, but it isn't exactly that way. Okay, so it's really only very approximately the way it should be. Okay, so where am I measuring? Well, if you look at the schematic, right, you see the horizontal frequency coil right here, and then you see the horizontal sine wave coil right there, and where you see point 16 here, so in effect I'm measuring right now right here at the center of the horizontal frequency coil. Okay, because electrically it's at the same point as this point here, which is marked as point 16. Now, where is that physically? Well, if you look at the tuner block, which you see here, then this is the horizontal frequency coil. Okay, this button here. And if you look underneath, the horizontal frequency coil is right there. Okay, and you can see in fact the scope grip attached to the center pin of the coil right now. It's a pink wire, in fact, so it's this wire here, okay, to which it is connected, and that's where I'm measuring the waveform you see over there. Now, by turning the kernel of this coil right here, I can influence the shape of that wave you see over there, and that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to take a plastic kernel screwdriver, yeah, and I'm going to turn slightly on the kernel. So hang on. Okay. Well, let me introduce it first so that I can continue with one hand. Okay. Right now the picture is horrible. Okay, so our main goal is to try to set the picture so that it looks normal. Okay, so here is my tuning tool, you know, this, which is just a simple screwdriver, plastic screwdriver. And now watch what happens when I turn the coil. Okay, watch the screen.
With so many claims being made on both sides, the EU referendum might appear confusing. BBC Reality Check investigates the facts behind these claims.
Okay, let me see. Okay, maybe this is a bit clearer. Okay, this approaches more the waveform that we need to have, and I align the waveform with one of the measurement grid's lines. Okay, so one of the horizontal division lines. Okay, so what we need to do by turning the screwdriver here is to align the one end of the squiggle with the other. And you can see as I turn the kernel that either one end dips down or the other. So what you need is actually a perfectly level squiggle, and I believe something like this is pretty close to what we need. Now let me have a look at the picture. Yep, there you go. The picture is okay. Alright, so setting that horizontal frequency coil, peaking it, is important. It is really vital. So that's what we did now. Now what we're going to do is to change the setup a little bit so that we can align the sound and the picture by using this peaking coil right here. Okay, the picture is now, as you can tell, really sharp, okay, at the sharpest I can make it, right? Right. But if you listen to the sound, it's really weak, and I'm at maximum volume. Okay, so this is really ludicrous. This is, well, almost synonymous to no sound at all. So what we're going to do now is to use the peaking coil over there, that peaking coil here, to change the sound quality, or at least to try to change the sound quality. So let's try. Okay, here we go. Oh, it's hard. Okay, one moment. Okay, the peaking coil was really stuck, so I had to unstuck it. So now let's turn the coil and let's listen to the sound. No, that's not it. One moment, because it's really hard to do with one hand. It's definitely a bit louder, but well, the improvement, there is an improvement, definitely, but it's not such a great improvement as I thought there would be. Now, there's one more setting I forgot to mention. Down here in the tuner, there is a slug which you can adjust, yeah, to peak the sound right down there, you see. And it's quite possible that I need to adjust that slug as well to improve the quality of the sound and the picture, and I'm going to try that, so give me a moment. Right, I adjusted the sound as much as I could, but it's still, in my opinion, quite weak. Oh, you can hear it all right, and it is rather strong, or stronger than it was before, and the image is really very nice now, as you can tell for yourselves. Now, the sound is still a bit weak, so it's quite possible that the amplification tube for the sound is not so hot any longer, and really the sound tube is, hang on, I'll show you. The sound tube, if you look at the schematic, is this one right here, the 6U8. Yeah, so I'm going to have a look whether I have a replacement 6U8 and then switch them around and see whether that improves the sound or not. For some reason, the horizontal of the TV is going completely bananas. So I'm injecting the test image signal, but as you can tell, the horizontal is shearing right now, and no matter how much I turn the horizontal frequency coil, which is right here, I can't seem to get it to lock. So I'm guessing there are three possibilities. The first one is that after reading the manual, the service manual, they do say that dressing the leads, which you see here, clustered here, is really critical. Probably because these wires each influence each other quite measurably. Yeah. Excuse me. And in fact, when I grab them and I pull them out of each other or sometimes closer to each other, it does seem to have a kind of an effect on the image refreshing frequency. Also, another problem could be that one of the tubes is giving up on me, and more specifically, of course, the horizontal oscillator tube, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a 6CG7. So it's quite possible that one of the 6CG7s, either this one or that one, is spent, broken in fact, which is a bit of a problem because I don't really have that many 6CG7s lying about, and as it just happens, those tubes are quite expensive. The third thing, of course, could be that some part or other in the TV, which I did not replace, went bad. So in fact, I'm a little bit, well, I'm forced actually to start measuring the chassis all over again in an attempt to locate the error. Now, what I think is happening, aside of course from a bad tube, is that, you see, whenever you replace a part by a new part, you probably change the amount of electrical loading on the other parts around it. And if those parts which are around the new ones happen to be the old original parts, well, it's quite possible that after this many years, because of a change in load, they just give up. They break down, which in this case would practically be either a resistor or maybe even a coil. It could be a capacitor, but I don't really think it is in this case. So yeah, well, to my great annoyance, I have to start measuring the chassis all over again. Now, the other thing I intend to do is to work a bit, do some prep work on the cabinet of the TV. Let me show you. Alright, well, here's the cabinet of the TV. Now, you have, for example, this part, which actually surrounds the buttons. Yeah, it sits actually on top of the buttons like this. Okay. Now, as you can tell, the legends around the buttons are quite faded. So, well, I guess some people would say, well, just clean it up a bit, but leave it as it is, you know, just for the sake of originality. And yeah, well, yeah, maybe I might do that. On the other hand, you know, when I look at the finishing of the paint on the chassis and all, well, I have to admit it's in really bad shape. Yeah, the handle also needs quite a bit of cleaning. So, you know, I've been thinking that maybe I might just put paint remover all over the chassis, yeah, repair a few nicks and dents, and maybe even use some naval jelly to take away some of the rust, and take away, of course, a lot of the old paint, and then repaint it. But I don't know. I could do a partial repaint, meaning I could, for example, repaint the whole body of the cabinet. So this part you are looking at right now. But for example, the bezel. Well, you know, the bezel originally, apparently, had a sort of a matte bronze or color, gold color finish. Now I could try to revive a little bit that color, but it's so badly scratched and all that I don't know if it would really make sense to, for example, repaint the whole cabinet and leave the bezel in its original damaged bronze color. So I don't know. If you have any suggestion, please do give me your suggestions. I am personally tempted to go for the complete repaint, which of course some purists might say would destroy the original finish, of course. But then again, you know, if you consider what people nowadays do when they restore old cars, for example, well, you know, cars, old vintage cars, are quite often stripped completely of their old paint and then repainted in exactly the same color they were originally. So, if you consider, let's say, the parallel between a vintage TV and a vintage car, well, then, of course, it would make sense to repaint it all. Well, I don't know. But what I can do, and in fact what I already did, was to clean the buttons. And I also ordered a few replacement buttons. And I can also clean the protective plate which sits in front of the picture tube. It's safety glass, so it's actually glass and not perspex or anything. So I can clean this, yeah, with some Windex or something like that. Anyway, well, let me first try to debug the chassis and see whether I can find the error that is making it go completely haywire. Okay, I got the image back by tweaking a little bit the horizontal frequency coil and the sine wave coil, which you remember is that little coil over here. Now, the picture is still unstable. It has the tendency to roll, albeit very slowly, and there is a kind of a picture deformation at the top. So otherwise the picture would be quite nice to look at. Now what I do notice is that when I change the contrast of the picture, it does have an effect on how it behaves. You see, this is with very low contrast, and then okay, the picture is not very nice, but at least it stands practically still, not quite, but practically. But the picture, of course, is totally unwatchable like this. However, if I augment the contrast, the picture becomes really very, very sharp, and like I said, quite nice to look at from a definition point of view. But you notice that it's really unstable. It shifts left to right slowly, and sometimes it even shifts up and down, and it also flickers quite a bit. So what could be the cause of that? Well, my guess is I should have a look around the contrast potentiometer, because I think some part around there is inducing this problem. Also, to my great annoyance, I'm not getting any sound anymore. No matter how much I tweak the sound IF coil here, yeah, no matter how much I tweak it, I get absolutely no sound whatsoever, which is quite annoying. So I will have to investigate that as well. Oh, by the way, I am watching the signal on the horizontal oscillator coil, and the waveform is really rock steady. It does need a little bit of tweaking still, but that's because the TV is heating up. But by tweaking it slightly, like this, yeah, I can compensate for that, and eventually I think I will find the perfect setting. Now, in any case, the horizontal oscillator is perfect. I mean, the signal is rock steady. It has the perfect shape, so there's nothing wrong with the horizontal oscillator in itself. There must be another source inducing trouble, you see. Now it's shearing again horizontally. So if I tweak the horizontal frequency coil there, then it comes back. But it's never stable. So, well, I should investigate what is going on. Well, sometimes the error is really a small one, and it often hides in a tiny corner. I seem to have found a reason why the picture went out of sync all the time. Okay, it's still a bit skewed here on the left side, so I still need to fix that a little bit, and there's still a kind of wobbling going on, mainly in the upper part of the picture. and I'll need to fix that somehow. I don't know yet where or what the possible reason could be, although I still suspect something somewhere in the horizontal deflection circuitry. Now, for the problem. Well, you will not believe it, but take a look at the schematic. Remember, I said I was going to look for the possible problem, a possible source of the problem, where the contrast button is. Okay, and here is the contrast button, or potentiometer, I should say. Now, notice this tiny little symbol right to the left of it. See that? C124 820 picofarad. Well, you see those capacitors here. These are in fact the replacement capacitors I mounted just now. And this is the original capacitor, which is a ceramic capacitor. Now, normally you would think that a ceramic capacitor can't go bad, right? Wrong. This one is completely bad. I can't even get a measure of it any longer. So it's completely open. Now notice that it's really dark in color. Yeah. Normally a ceramic capacitor has a much lighter color. You know, something like this, a light tan color. This one is really brown, deep brown. Now, it was mounted right up here, right above this tube. So probably what happened is that the capacitor got cooked over the years, hanging over this tube here, which becomes quite hot actually, and there was, above all, no shielding over the tube, which of course made for a lot of heat dissipation going into this capacitor. And this capacitor actually provoked the going out of sync completely of the horizontal and the vertical. This one single capacitor connected to the potentiometer for the contrast. Boy oh boy, who would have thought, eh? Anyway, after I fixed this, I thought, well, I'm not going to make the same mistake the people who built this or serviced this, and I'm going to make two tube covers, and you see them right now. Actually, what this is, I'll show you. Okay, this is wide copper tape, okay, which I rolled backwards over itself, okay, and in between I put some aluminized paper, which in turn I covered with metal, or rather aluminum foil on the outside, just to give it the necessary stiffness. So it's okay, I can still flatten it if I push my fingers together, but the main thing is that it is a metal tube which now shields this vacuum bulb here. Yeah, so I can simply slide it over like this. It fits rather snugly, and since it is metal, it also makes contact with the little wiper you see back there. Okay, so I effectively made some cheap but good shielding over the tubes, and I'm really glad I thought about this trick. So it might serve two purposes: shielding these potentiometers and this capacitor, which by the way I had to build out of two separate capacitors because it's 820 pico and I didn't have that. Okay, so I combined a 430 and a let me think, and a 390 picofarad. Okay, or was it a 420? I forget. It's something like that, 420 or 430 picofarad combined with a 390 picofarad, which makes, in theory, for the value we are looking for. Yeah, so I repaired that. So I replaced this ceramic capacitor and I made these tube shieldings. Now the picture is, well, you could say it's starting to look good. It's not perfect yet. It still needs a bit of tuning and aligning, but we're getting there. Okay, well, since we've arrived this far, there's only really one big problem to solve now, which is the absence of sound. Okay, I can't get any sound out of the speaker, except perhaps for a very, very light buzzing noise. I can't get anything out of it. So probably there is something wrong with either the amplification or possibly with the sound IF circuitry on that part of the chassis. So I'll have to investigate which it is. Right, well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video, and next video we'll be tackling the cabinet of the RCA. So if you wish, give me your opinion on how I should do it, either completely strip and repaint or just repair and retouch. So until next time, bye bye.